hitting the nice guy from school has somehow escalated into her staring down the mighty Excalibur while questioning every decision that brought her to this exact moment. And apparently, regular dungeon exploration wasn't adventurous enough anymore, because these two are about to unlock an entirely new route that Megumi definitely didn't know was included with the boyfriend package. She's embarrassed, he's enthusiastic, and Excalibur has officially received clearance for deployment. Megumi nervously gives Satoru permission to proceed. The legendary rod approaches previously unexplored territory, and, oh, come on, I was explaining important character development.
Editor here. No, you weren't. You were approximately 4 words away from making my job significantly harder.
Fine. Let's just say Satoru discovers the secret dungeon entrance. Megumi discovers several things about herself that probably weren't included in health class, and our boy prepares to boldly explore where no boyfriend has explored before. And somehow, Megumi tells him not to stop. Yep, we've gone from innocent school crush to endgame content remarkably quickly. My wallet can already feel this episode coming. But before we find out how these two ended up here, we need to rewind. Because believe it or not, this entire disaster started with homework. The most successful homework session of all time. Sojuro and Megumi are supposed to be having a completely ordinary study session. Books, pencils, homework, absolutely nothing suspicious. And then Sojuro suddenly decides he's apparently completed enough side quests and it's finally time to progress the main storyline. He looks directly at Megumi and confesses. He tells her that he loves her and asks if she'll go out with them. And somehow, it works. Our boy entered this room expecting mathematics and walked out having acquired his first girlfriend. Forget homework. This man just received the rarest achievement in the game. Satoru can barely believe it himself. He thinks Megumi is ridiculously cute, but unfortunately he's also painfully self-conscious whenever he's around her. Megumi notices immediately and wonders why he's always so pessimistic about himself. And that's when we start learning why she actually likes him. Because this relationship didn't appear from nowhere. Megumi remembers all the little things Satoru has done for her. When she was overwhelmed with studying at prep school, he helped handle her cleaning duties. When her dog needed help, Satoru introduced her to a good veterinarian. Even little everyday moments, like lending her something when she needed it, have slowly convinced Megumi that underneath all that nervousness is actually a genuinely thoughtful guy. So she finally admits it. How could she not grow to like somebody who constantly treats her so well? Satoru is stunned. Meanwhile, Megumi immediately realizes she has just admitted her feelings out loud and mentally begins screaming. But Satoru is happy that she's finally being honest. And for approximately 30 beautiful seconds, this is actually wholesome. Enjoy it, because innocence is currently packing its bags. Megumi's brain immediately betrays her. Megumi admits that she's incredibly self-conscious too. In fact, she's so aware of other people's feelings that she constantly overthinks what Satoru might be thinking. And then she catches him looking in her direction, specifically a little lower than her eyes. Megumi immediately becomes convinced he's staring at her chest, and instead of thinking something normal like, maybe he's just looking down, her brain decides, which one does he want, right? Left? Perhaps the legendary 2-for-1 special? Megumi instantly realizes what she's thinking and becomes horrified with herself. Meanwhile, Satoru somehow manages to make the situation even worse by accidentally choosing the left. Bro, there are moments in life where silence is your greatest ally. This was one of them. Satoru immediately enters maximum apology mode. He's apologizing so intensely, you'd think he'd accidentally declared war on a neighboring country. But here's the problem. Megumi isn't actually angry. Quite the opposite. She's secretly happy about it. And now she's wondering whether asking him to continue would make her seem weird. Lady, approximately 5 minutes ago, you were discussing veterinary recommendations. What happened? Megumi looks at Satoru and realizes she desperately wants him to kiss her. And eventually, they do. Their first kiss immediately becomes far more passionate than either of them expected. The transcript describes their tongues intertwining in a way that makes this sound less like teenage romance and more like two snakes competing for territory. But for Megumi, this is genuinely important. It's her first real kiss, She's nervous, she's overwhelmed, but she's also clearly enjoying being this close to him. Satoru admits that he wants to go further. Megumi hesitates, but ultimately admits she wants more too. And that is the precise moment when the wholesome romance train leaves the station and begins traveling toward questionable decision central. Satoru's hands start wandering. Megumi realizes he's becoming much more confident about touching her, and rather than pulling away, she's increasingly excited by the attention. Things escalate. Quickly, very quickly, suspiciously quickly. Satoru begins exploring Megumi's upper floor facilities. Then his expedition starts heading south, and eventually our adventurer arrives at the entrance to the Forbidden Dungeon. Boy, I haven't even said anything yet.
Editor here. I've read the transcript.
Fair point. Satoru discovers the dungeon.
Much better.
Megumi is incredibly embarrassed about Satoru seeing her this intimately. This is her first relationship, her first experience like this, and every new step sends her brain into another panic spiral. But the funny thing is that her embarrassment and curiosity are fighting a war. And curiosity is absolutely bodying embarrassment. Satoru begins some extremely enthusiastic dungeon inspection. Megumi initially worries about whether everything is okay down there, only to rapidly discover that Satoru apparently intends to conduct the most thorough inspection in Japanese history. And whatever technique this man has discovered, it works. Megumi's internal dialogue goes from, "This is embarrassing," to "wait," to "do not stop." The dungeon's monster meter begins reporting numbers previously thought scientifically impossible. Satoru notices. Megumi notices that Satoru notices, which makes Megumi even more embarrassed, which somehow makes everything worse, or better, depending on whose perspective we're using. Eventually, Megumi stops pretending she isn't interested and essentially gives him permission to bring out the mean equipment. And Satoru unsheathes Excalibur. Megumi sees the legendary weapon for the first time and immediately reconsiders every life choice she has ever made, because apparently our boy has been hiding a max-level weapon underneath the starter equipment. Megumi suddenly gets scared. This is no longer fantasy. They're actually about to go all the way. Satoru reassures her and tells her to relax. Megumi tries. She fails, spectacularly, but she trusts him, and so, Excalibur approaches the dungeon gate. Clearance is granted. The mighty rod begins its first expedition, and Excalibur finally penetra.
I'm getting ahead of the problem this time. Editor here. Saved your hide again.
You could have at least used better footage. Anyway, Excalibur has officially entered the dungeon. That's all you're getting. For Megumi, the beginning is uncomfortable. She admits that it hurts a little, which makes sense considering this is her first experience, and Satoru immediately checks whether she's okay. Megumi tells him she is. More importantly, she asks him to continue. She wants this first experience to become something enjoyable for both of them. As they gradually become more comfortable, Megumi's nervousness begins disappearing. And that's when she discovers another unfortunate truth. She really likes this guy, not just emotionally. Her internal monologue becomes progressively less innocent as the encounter continues. Satoru is equally overwhelmed by how close they feel. Megumi realizes he's enjoying himself too, which actually makes her happy because this isn't just something happening to her. It's an experience they're sharing together, which would be extremely romantic if Megumi's internal narration wasn't simultaneously turning into something written by a woman possessed by a romance novel. Eventually, both of them realize they're approaching the final boss phase. Satoru asks whether she's ready. Megumi tells him she wants them to reach the finish together. And after one final heroic charge, the legendary Excalibur unleashes its holy pal. Ow, behave.
You're welcome.
Fine. The dungeon receives its completion reward.
See? Was that so difficult?
Megumi receives several emotional revelations. Satoru receives approximately 3 seconds of inner peace. And somewhere, my wallet quietly begins crying. And somehow this becomes their normal relationship. After their first time together, Satoru and Megumi officially begin dating. And you might assume that now the story settles into cute dates, hand-holding, studying together, and maybe some karaoke. Haha. No. Megumi admits that whenever they meet privately, things tend to happen. A lot. and Satoru is apparently becoming progressively more daring each time. The funniest part is Megumi's imagination. Before Satoru even arrives, she's already constructing increasingly ridiculous scenarios in her head about what he might do. Then Satoru actually shows up late and apologizes. Megumi looks at him. Satoru looks at her. They're both blushing. And Megumi immediately wonders, can he read my thoughts? No, Megumi. Thankfully, because if this man could hear what's currently happening inside your brain, he'd need protective equipment. Satoru discovers the combo system. Once they're alone, things escalate again, and apparently Satoru has been practicing, because this man has discovered the combo multiplier. Megumi quickly becomes overwhelmed by his hands. One successful attack becomes another, then another. And before she knows what's happening, Megumi has apparently experienced 3 consecutive critical hits. 3. At this point, she's less girlfriend and more a malfunctioning pinball machine. Megumi can't believe how quickly her body reacts to him now. Meanwhile, Satoru has another idea. He wants to try something new. Megumi has secretly been wondering about exactly the same thing. Specifically, she wants to make Excalibur happy. Satoru asks whether she'd be willing to give the legendary weapon some manual maintenance. Actually, no. Wrong department. Oral maintenance. I chose my words carefully. Put it down. Megumi agrees, and our girl begins her first attempt at polishing the legendary blade. She's inexperienced, so initially she's basically experimenting. Does this work? What about here? Maybe this part? Meanwhile, Satoru is internally experiencing a religious awakening. Megumi realizes he's reacting strongly and becomes genuinely happy that she's making him feel good. So naturally, she starts experimenting more. Satoru gives her directions. Megumi follows them. And suddenly, she's leveling the skill faster than somebody with double XP weekend enabled. Eventually, Satoru's legendary weapon begins approaching critical pressure. Megumi essentially tells him, don't worry about the cleanup. And shortly afterward, the holy power is released.
Editor here. You're welcome.
You didn't need to make the audience legally blind.
Still easier than editing whatever you were about to describe.
Megumi has created a monster. Afterward, Megumi looks at the aftermath and basically tells Satoru he behaved like somebody from an adult movie, which is incredibly rich coming from the woman whose internal monologue has been doing half the heavy lifting this entire episode. But seeing how much Satoru enjoyed himself does something to Megumi. Her embarrassment starts disappearing, and suddenly our formerly shy schoolgirl decides, round 2. Actually, more like round 12. Megumi wants Satoru to stop holding back. Satoru happily accepts these terms and conditions, and the dungeon expedition resumes. This time they're much more comfortable with each other. Megumi even notices that different positions make Excalibur feel different, while Satoru admits that he becomes particularly excited whenever he's with her. That's actually sweet. In an extremely questionable context, their relationship has essentially become, I love you. I love you too. Deploy Excalibur. Megumi repeatedly reaches her limit and eventually loses track of how many times Satoru has managed to overwhelm her. And between all the ridiculousness, there's actually something surprisingly affectionate happening. Megumi keeps asking him to kiss her. Satoru has learned what she enjoys. Megumi notices, and she loves that he pays attention to her reactions. These two might be absolute degenerates, but they're considerate degenerates. The dungeon boss fight. Eventually, Satoru begins reaching places that make Megumi question whether human anatomy has secret unlockable areas. She becomes convinced Excalibur has discovered some legendary chamber buried deep inside the dungeon. Whether that's anatomically accurate is completely irrelevant. Megumi believes it. And right now, Megumi's brain has approximately 4 functioning neurons remaining. Satoru teases her about how much she's enjoying herself. Megumi immediately gets embarrassed and tells him not to say things like that. Her words say, stop embarrassing me. Her body says, continue the raid. Eventually, both of them approach the finish again. Megumi gives Satoru permission. Excalibur charges, the dungeon braces for impact, and...
Editor here. I'm watching you.
Why a hamster? Anyway, another holy blessing is successfully delivered. We'll leave it there. After everything finally settles down, Megumi casually reveals that they've apparently gone through this routine 4 times in a row. 4. Saturo's legendary weapon has finally stopped responding. The mighty Excalibur has fallen. Our hero has been defeated. Not by a dragon, not by an army, not even by another swordsman. By overuse. Megumi doesn't even mind. She cuddles up with him and tells Saturo that she loves him. And underneath all the ridiculous adult comedy, this is actually the emotional core of the episode. Megumi genuinely loves him. She loves how he makes her feel. She loves that he's learned what she likes, and although she struggles to express affection properly, she hopes that someday she'll be able to communicate just how strongly she feels. It's surprisingly wholesome. Until Saturo suddenly announces, Excalibur is awakening again. Brother, rest. Your HP bar is empty. Megumi, naturally, is delighted. She immediately announces that the dungeon is apparently ready for another expedition.
Editor here. I'm requesting hazard pay.
Don't you dare leave me. We're not finished yet. Unfortunately, neither are they. A secret area has been discovered. Saturo starts teasing Megumi again, except this time, our adventurer notices something. There's another entrance, a previously unexplored route, a secret dungeon. Megumi immediately tells him absolutely not. That territory is forbidden, closed, condemned, no visitors. Saturo, however, becomes curious. He starts investigating. Megumi insists she's definitely not enjoying this. Her internal monologue immediately confirms that she absolutely is. Saturo notices this contradiction and asks whether she's becoming interested. Megumi denies everything. Then approximately 3 seconds later, admits it feels incredible. Megumi, you would be terrible under interrogation. Saturo finally asks the dangerous question. Can Excalibur explore this dungeon too? Megumi freezes. She's scared. She's uncertain. But because she trusts Saturo and wants to experience this new kind of closeness with him, she agrees. And suddenly, it's the secret dungeon. Megumi nervously prepares herself. Saturo promises to be careful. Excalibur approaches the forbidden entrance. The gate opens. The legendary rod receives clearance. And Saturo begins entering completely unexplored territory. Megumi immediately discovers that this dungeon operates under considerably tighter security. Saturo is shocked too, but slowly, carefully, Excalibur successfully penetrates the secret dungeon.
Editor here. I'll allow it.
Yes, character development. Megumi is incredibly embarrassed by the entire situation. She can't believe she's actually enjoying something she previously considered completely off limits. Saturo checks whether she wants him to stop. And this is the important part. Megumi could end things right there. Instead, she tells him not to stop. In fact, she wants him to continue. Saturo realizes she's enjoying the new experience far more than either of them expected. And Megumi's internal monologue officially gives up pretending she's innocent. At this point, she basically awards herself a certificate declaring, "Certified freak. Congratulations. Your parents must be
Finish that sentence and I'm deleting your entire editing timeline.
very proud of her academic achievements."
Excellent recovery.
The final holy blessing. Eventually, Saturo begins reaching his limit again. Megumi realizes what's about to happen, and instead of panicking, she encourages him. Excalibur begins charging the ultimate ability. The dungeon gates are locked. Retreat is impossible. Saturo activates the final attack. Megumi braces herself, and then the mighty Excalibur unleashes its final holy power deep within the forbidden dungeon. After everything finally settles down, Megumi asks Saturo if they can remain close for a little longer. And he agrees. The frantic comedy disappears for a moment. They're simply lying together, exhausted and happy. Megumi thinks that it feels like heaven. She wants to stay there with Saturo forever. And honestly, after everything these two have put themselves through today, they've earned a nap. So what started as a surprisingly wholesome relationship between the shy girl and the genuinely nice guy who kept helping her has somehow evolved into romance, first kisses, first experiences, repeated dungeon expeditions, advanced Excalibur magnets, 4 consecutive boss fights, a secret dungeon discovery, and one editor who is now demanding hazard pay.
Editor here. Triple. Price went up after the secret dungeon.
Best I can do is exposure.
I quit.
Wait, we still have the outro. And somehow, despite all the madness, Megumi and Saturo genuinely seem happier together than when this episode began. Saturo finally got the girl he couldn't believe would ever like him. Megumi finally found a guy kind enough to make her feel comfortable being herself. And Excalibur. Well, Excalibur deserves a week off. Thanks for watching, lads, and maybe girls. I don't know. Some of you are freaky. Leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you thought of Magui and Satoru down below. And seriously, somebody take Excalibur away from this man before the next episode. Because at this rate, it's not Satoru I'm worried about. It's my editor.
Editor here. Too late. I've already applied for 3 other channels.